Now, while the maritime industry's ambition to transform itself has dominated headlines, there has been little talk about the critical businesses that also need to reinvent themselves. On day 4 of Singapore Maritime Week, the spotlight turned to the sea change ahead for the financial, legal and insurance services. And Gwyneth Teo joins us live from the newsroom now. Gwyneth, why are maritime services in Singapore suddenly in the spotlight?
So while shipping may be the global lifeblood of the global economy, it's really these services like financing, legal, insurers that really keep these shipping companies operating. And when you do things like decarbonize, you might have to commission, say, new ships, and you need access to green financing, and you need to navigate that. Because, for example, it may be obvious that if you are having access to green financing, your vessel cannot use fossil fuels, but you also cannot carry fossil fuels. So all these need to be navigated. And when you have digitalization, where you have automation in use on ships or at ports, that exposes you to greater cybersecurity risk. So insurers have to understand that in order to underwrite for those as well. So the entire services sector also has to be on board with these trends. Another thing is also Singapore's position in terms of the global shipping industry. 80% of global cargo still moves by sea, and Singapore is the busiest transshipment port in the world, and that's the loading and unloading of cargo. So whatever is done here, whatever the maritime services ecosystem is like here, it has scale and it has impact.
Well, Gwyneth, we've been hearing a lot about decarbonization and why it's such a major move for the maritime industry, but why is it considered such a sea change?
I think it's really two things. Like I said, when you decarbonize, you may need access to, say, new ships, because it's not just as simple as putting in the new fuels into existing ships. You may have to commission and design new ships. And one ship generation is 30 years. And that's exactly also the amount of time we have until the International Maritime Organization's decarbonization goals by 2050. So now is really the time to decarbonize, to redesign and to commission all these ships. Or the other thing is that there's also added complexity, because it's not going to be as simple as just having one type of new fuel. It could be biofuels, it could be ammonia, it could be hydrogen fuel cell. And a lot of these things are still in development right now. And also, most likely what's going to happen is that different vessels are going to have access or use different fuels because of the range that is required. And when you have all these different things to deal with right now, it's very complex, and it will have implications on insurance and regulations. For example, authorities are going to impose new regulations as well. You don't want your vessel to be turned away from a port, for example, for not passing those regulations. And you also need to make sure that you're safe and seaworthy to operate. So there are all these implications as well as the entire industry continues to transform and evolve. Well, I sat down with a lawyer earlier. He's also a member of the Singapore Shipping Association, who described the kinds of impact that all these changes are going to have on the maritime services sector.
When you have ships that have new designs, that's where the insurers are a little bit concerned. But if the industry wants to go that way, the insurers will have to adapt, will have to learn. And for example, working with the manufacturers of engine and other components of the vessel to ensure that, you know, it's safe at the end of the day to operate. As far as the legal side is concerned, when you have new products, when you have new ways of operating, you likely have new regulations.
So pulling out a little bit, a lot of the new financing has come out of China and Japan, places in Asia, which are not usually the traditional sources of financing for maritime industry. So how will having a robust maritime ecosystem here actually help to maybe potentially support what's happening in the region in terms of these trends?
At the end of the day, ships moves everywhere, goods moves everywhere. We can't just find a solution here in Singapore. It's actually a global solution, but if we were the ones who take the lead and to start to think about all these problems and find solutions for these problems, we can help the others. And hopefully, in terms of operations in shipping, it will just help to improve any inefficiencies and delays that we've basically been facing.
One of the challenges that we know the maritime industry is facing is actually talent development. So as a lawyer yourself, what would you actually say to a young law student or young lawyer to attract them to come to the maritime industry when there's so many other options out there?
I can see new startups coming in and say that maybe 5 years, even 5 years ago, shipping was pretty close to some of these ideas, but now we are very open. So if you are someone who is looking to grow in this sector as well, I think thinking about shipping related technology is really something of a growth area and something which would excite you.